Hi guys, it's Mike Fielding here. This is the fourth installment of my story. I'm hoping that you have watched the other installments. But anyway, just to summarize real quick, I had a spinal cord injury as a result of a dive incident and was paralyzed from the rib cage down. And in the previous videos, I've just been describing how I felt about that and how I've used positive thinking and visualizations to try and start healing my body. And so basically where we left off is that I had been having extensive treatments in the decompression chamber, where they put you in it mimics being underwater because it just increases the pressure and breathing oxygen just as therapy. And I was doing that for very long stints during the day, and it was really time consuming and you know, just draining to be having to go to that each day, because it was over 10 days, 54 hours total in the chamber. And so I was really looking forward to the day when I didn't have to be going. And so that's where I'm going to start at day 11, the first day that I didn't actually have to go to the chamber. That side of the treatment had finished as far as it had gone. Look, I'd made a massive difference, because at the start I was, as I said, paralyzed. I could not walk, I couldn't move, I had limited sensation, and I had no core muscle, so I couldn't sit up. And by day 11, I was walking with a rollator, and I was walking, you know, distances of a couple of 100 meters reasonably well, 200-300 meters potentially, you know, and able to do a few stairs with the rollator. So, you know, I was a lot better as far as that was concerned. Still had altered sensation, still had a catheter in, which was, you know, very irritating and annoying, but was out of hospital. I wasn't staying in hospital. From day 7 onwards, we were staying in a hotel. So the big thing about not having to go to the chamber was the fact that I was then able to spend a lot more time with Lindsay. We were able to start to try and get some semblance of a holiday back, where we could have breakfast together, and then, you know, we're in this beautiful location. We were in Zanzibar, the sun was out most days, really nice, a little bit of cloud every now and again, but really nice location. And we had like beach lounges that were attached to the hotel that we could use, so we were able to go down by the beach and have that experience. And part of the experience was actually being you know, talked to constantly by the beach sellers, selling t-shirts, selling necklaces, selling sarongs, selling henna, whatever it was. But that interaction with the locals was actually quite fun. Like, some people can get annoyed by it, but there were some characters, and it was quite funny seeing the guys working on the boats, giving different pieces of advice, you know, golden pieces of advice that, you know, maybe if I had followed them to the letter of the law, maybe I'd be even better now, who knows? Because some of the advice was that you needed to bury yourself in the sand, because that was really good for healing. And so that, you know, I should come and bury myself in the sand for an hour a day. I didn't actually do that fully. I did actually bury my feet in the sand, mind you. But anyway, but you can see there was just a little bit of flavor there with the interaction with the locals. And anyway, so the fact is that I was still having to go to physiotherapy in the afternoon, and, you know, the physiotherapist, look, it was good. It was a little bit of a different experience than it would have been in, say, Australia or the UK. It was definitely not as organised over in Zanzibar, but at the same time, the physiotherapist was doing his best. I could see he was motivated. I could see he was keen to work with me. He wasn't that experienced, but at the same time, it gave me an area where I could work with the parallel bars, and there was a little bit of a reclined bike, and we were doing some resisted exercises together. And I was doing, you know, I was doing a lot of the guiding of what, you know, order we were doing things. But he was fine. He didn't have an ego. He didn't have a problem with that. So it was just really good to go and spend that hour there. And, you know, it was just a few hours out of the day total with travel time. And so it was just a much better situation. In the evenings, because we weren't getting back so late from the chamber, we were able to have dinner together, and, you know, even go, I was taking the rollator on the beach, joking that it was an all-terrain rollator, and walking along the beach in the sand with this rollator, and going for a drink at beach bars and things like that. So starting to get some semblance of a holiday. But the thing that I wanted to kind of talk about was just the fact that in any given situation, you just have to think about the things that you can do as opposed to the things you can't do. So, you know, in one breath you could say, look, I'm walking with this rollator, I've got a catheter in, I can't go in the pool because of the catheter, you know, and I've got this limited mobility, and you could be very negative and down about it and say, look, I haven't got access to very good physiotherapy and so on, and good equipment and all this. But you know, it's the glass half empty, isn't it? And then, you know, the other mentality is the glass half full, looking at what you can do. You know, yes, I'm walking with a rollator. Last week I couldn't even walk, so we can actually go off and I can make that part of my physiotherapy to walk with this rollator and exercise, and maybe we can go for a smoothie, or as I was saying, we can go for a drink, or venture out to some of the restaurants that were closer by at first, and then set yourself challenges of going a little bit further afield, further down the line. Because as well as having this positive mentality, it's important to have goals, yeah? To be able to think, well, what can I do? You know, what I can't do it now, but what can I do in a few days' time, or in a few more days' time after that? And looking at having that as a motivating thing. And so one of the things I really wanted to get well enough to do was to be able to go on a sunset cruise, because the night, or the day that this happened, we had a sunset cruise booked. So we were coming off that dive, and we were supposed to go for this sunset cruise that afternoon. And it didn't happen, of course, because of what happened to me. So, you know, I was determined that now we were in this still in Zanzibar, in this beautiful location, and we still had the option of doing a sunset cruise in a traditional dhow boat. But I needed to get well enough to be able to climb the ladder onto the boat and just be able to handle that situation. So that was one of the first goals, and we managed that, and it was great to be able to do that. And another goal was that we wanted to go for a really nice meal, because we were in Stone Town, and you know, there was nice restaurants around, and one of the best restaurants there was at the Hilton, Doubletree Hilton, and there was 8 steps leading up to the Hilton, and Lindsay had taken a picture of it and said, this is the task at hand, you know, this is what you have to do. And I was looking at that and thinking, you know, I reckon if I can get onto crutches, I can definitely do that. I can do those steps with crutches. You know, and I did move on to crutches, and you know, I was using crutches for a bit, but quite quickly, because I was doing other exercises, I was able to get to the point where I actually felt I didn't need the crutch, so I was barely using it, and then I started to try and walk short distances and then longer distances without it. So as it turned out, I did actually get to the point where we went to the Doubletree Hilton and enjoyed a really nice meal, had a beautiful glass of wine, met the chef who wrote some really nice messages, and I did it without the crutch. And again, I'm just trying to just kind of emphasize the importance of having goals and trying to focus on, you know, chipping away and getting towards them, and having that as your motivation, and focusing on that rather than what you can't do, and going into a darker or a negative place. You know, and you know, so that was that, and you know, I managed actually on the very last night to go to a place called Emerson Spice, which actually had 5 flights of stairs, which, you know, was a real challenge. But that was on our very last night, and we'd gone to their sister hotel earlier in the trip when we were in Stone Town the first time round, and it was fantastic. It was amazing. So it was one of those things where I really wanted to try and do it if possible, and it was a big challenge, but we did manage it, and it was a great last night. Anyway, so look, that was the sort of end of that phase in Zanzibar, and then I was well enough to start to fly home. You know, I had to give 2 weeks after being in the chamber to be well enough to fly home. That was the doctor's requirements. So, you know, again, just before I sign off there, I do want to give a massive shout out actually to Haji, Mr. Haji, who was ferrying us around that week when I was going to the physio, and was just great. He was so fantastic. It was good to interact with him and talk to him about, you know, his culture and you know, and just a big thank you to him. Anyway, so we left Zanzibar. And you know, the insurance company looked out for us. You know, they did come really good in the end, and gave us like a business class flight home on Qatar Airways, which is amazing, by the way. So if you get a chance, do it. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because I again just want to bring it back to the fact that even though situations can seem negative, you've got to look for the positive and the fun things within that situation, because basically, although we were in this situation where I couldn't walk long distances, and so therefore had wheelchair like escorts, part of it was that, you know, me and Lindsay were joking, going, well, maybe, you know, we might get to ride on the golf buggy, you know, around the airport. And that happened. So in Doha, it was fantastic because the airport was quite empty. We, you know, got onto this golf cart and whizzed through the airport, and, you know, it was an experience. It's a unique experience, you know, and, you know, we've got the footage to prove it, and it was a great laugh. So again, it's finding the fun and the positives in situations, even though they're you know, they outside looking in maybe negative, you can find positives within them, and there's always positives within situations, even if it's, you know, a very, very dark sort of bleak sort of situation. There's still going to be some points in it that you can find positives. Anyway, we got home and I still had that same mentality that I just wanted to start trying to set goals, to try and make sure I was doing the best I could to rehab myself. And so my first goal was to try and get back to work. And so I set myself a week after I got back to then start to try and go back to half days, because I could walk reasonably well if I was really concentrating, if I was power walking and using my arms, because it engaged my core. But what I couldn't do very well was just walk around casually, not thinking about it. You know, if I was a bit distracted, I was a bit stumbly, and it's what we call proprioception. It's that ability to know where you are in space and make little adjustments. Now, you can work on that with exercises, but it's very hard to mimic all the little individual adjustments that you make for going to work, especially for someone who has manual work like myself. I'm a physiotherapist, so I have to, you know, massage and move around the table and do mobilization on people and teach some exercises and so on. So, you know, I'm doing different things, and all those little adjustments, you know, they teach the body how to be normal, you know. So I knew that was a form of my therapy to do that, and I did manage to get back to that. It was hard at first, but, you know, I was able to do that, and I have actually, you know, since done a few full days as well, not back to full-time hours yet, and that will be a good sort of 3 or 4 weeks off yet, but it's getting there. And as far as other things are concerned, I've just been continuing to set goals as far as getting back into the gym. You know, I've been pushing the prowler and doing squats and some lunges, because another goal was to try and actually be able to teach courses. Because one of the things that I do is I teach Pilates courses at the weekend. Not every weekend, but you know, I do teach these courses, and I had a couple of courses booked in. And one was about 4 weeks after I got back, and the other one was straight after that, 5 weeks. And you know, I've just managed to finish those two courses the weekend before last, and the weekend gone. And it was really challenging, but I was looking at the movements that I would have to do for it. And of course, there was no way I was going to be able to do all of them. But I wanted to still be able to present the course to the best of my ability. And so again, it was motivation. It was a goal to try and get up to that level, to be able to do that, to pull that off, and even just to be standing and, you know, and presenting for the whole weekend. And look, I hold my hands up. The last one, which was a 2-day course, as opposed to the first weekend, which was just a 1-day. I was wiped out after the first day and had to have a snooze, and straight after I got home. But, you know, I did get through it. And again, the point I'm making is by having goals, it pushed me to try and better my situation. And look, I'm going to sign off in a minute, but like, you know, the other thing, as I've mentioned, is you've always got to look at the positive side of things. And I did put a post up about this at the time, but saying, you know, your life situation has changed when it's a positive thing that you have to stick a tube up your pee hole 4 or 5 times a day. But it's true. At day 33, my indwelling catheter came out, which was, you know, irritating. You know, it's hard to describe how irritating that was to have this catheter in the whole time. And I've gone to self-catheterization. And again, I could be in a negative place, saying why are, you know, like it's 8 weeks now after the incident and I'm still having to self-catheterize. This has not come back. I can't just go to the bathroom. I'm having to, you know, put a catheter to actually go to the bathroom. But you know, it is an improvement in my situation. You know, I can go for swims. I can do other things that are fun with Lindsay, like hold hands, you know, and you know, this is the thing. It's fun, right? Like, so it's an improvement of the situation, and that's what I concentrate on, as opposed to the idea of, oh, this is still happening to me. It's like, okay, this is happening to me now, but look what was happening before, and this is an improvement. And again, it's just that mindset of trying to think of the positives there. And look, just before I sign off, because I'm bringing you up to present day, how I am now, my mobility is pretty good. I can work full days, not full-time hours. I am able to go to the gym. I can swim. Like when I first got in the pool, I will just make a mention to my swimming friends. It was very, very interesting to be able to try and swim when you have no core and you have no power in your legs. Now, I'm someone who's known as someone who doesn't kick their legs in the water, but it was like just experiencing, this is how it must feel like not to be able to swim, because I was barely moving through the water, and it was such a strange feeling for someone who's been a competitive swimmer. But I challenged myself. I was like, can I get back to some sort of normalcy as far as the times that I could swim in the pool? And I actually got to a point where I can swim 1:25 for 100 freestyle, and 3 minutes for 200 freestyle, and that's not too bad from, you know, where I was. I think it's about 15 seconds to 20 seconds off the 200 and about 10 seconds off the 100 of what I was normally doing, because I'm, you know, not super fit in competitive mode at the moment. But so I'm quite pleased with that, and I, you know, again, it's a goal to just try and get back to being able to swim the times I was able to do before, and I can do tumble turns now. I'm brave enough to do that, which is good. And you know, one last goal that I am really determined to do is, just before I went away, I did a 1 meter 27.5 centimeter box jump. And to do a box jump, you need core, you need power, you need coordination, all of these things. And my best at the moment, after really pushing myself, is 45 centimeters.